The sound of shattering glass echoed through the marble halls of the Morgan estate again. Terrified Nanny ran out, her uniform stained with juice, her hair tangled with paint. "I quit," she cried, slamming the door. From the grand staircase, Alexander Morgan, one of the richest men in the country, pressed his fingers to his temples. "That's the 12th this month," he muttered, glancing toward the living room where 4 pairs of mischievous green eyes peeked from behind the couch. His quadruplets Siam, Lucy, Logan, and Lily were 6 years old. Since their mother's death 3 years ago, no nanny had lasted more than a week. They weren't just mischievous, they were angry, lost, and hurting, and no amount of wealth could fix what was broken inside that mansion. That's when she arrived. Her name was Clara Bennett, a former elementary school teacher with a soft voice and a heart heavy with her own scars. She had lost her fiancé in an accident and had left teaching because the pain of being around children reminded her too much of the future she'd lost. But when she saw the ad for the Morgan family nanny needed, patience required. Something stirred inside her. Maybe helping them could help her heal too. When she arrived, the mansion towered before her like a fortress of loneliness. Alexander Morgan stood at the door, looking immaculate, yet utterly exhausted. "I should warn you," he said dryly. "They've made professionals cry." Clara smiled gently. "I've taught 32nd graders on a rainy Monday. I'll take my chances." Her first day began with chaos. The quadruplets had locked themselves in a room, refusing to come out. "We don't want another nanny," one of them yelled. "They all leave." Clara didn't shout back, simply sat down outside the door. "That must feel really awful," she said softly. "People coming and going like that." There was silence. Then a small, suspicious voice asked, "Why aren't you mad?" "Because I know what it feels like to lose someone too," Clara replied. "And sometimes, when you hurt that much, it's easier to push people away before they leave you first." The door cracked open just an inch, but it was enough. That evening, instead of fancy meals, Clara made pancakes in the kitchen and let the kids help. Even when flour ended up everywhere, she didn't flinch when Logan spilled milk or when Lily burned a pancake. She'd laughed a real genuine laugh, and soon they were laughing too. For the first time in years, the mansion echoed not with shouting, but with joy. From the hallway, Alexander watched quietly, something warm and unfamiliar flickering in his chest. Over the next weeks, Clara didn't perform miracles overnight. The children tested her, constantly hiding her shoes, locking her phone, even pretending to be sick. But instead of scolding, she listened. When Liam broke a vase, she asked him to help her clean it up, and then told him stories about how sometimes even broken things could become more beautiful when mended with care. When Lucy refused to sleep without crying, Clara sat by her bed, singing softly until the little girl's breathing slowed. And when Logan and Lily fought, she made them hold hands until they could say one kind thing about each other. Bit by bit, the walls began to crumble. One rainy afternoon, Clara found a dusty piano in the corner of the living room. "Does anyone know how to play?" she asked. Silence. Then Lucy whispered, "Mom used to." The room froze. Even Alexander, who had been walking by, stopped in his tracks. It was the first time the children had mentioned their mother in years. Clara smiled gently. "Then maybe we can play for her." She sat at the piano and began to play a soft, tender melody. The children gathered around her, and soon 4 small voices began humming along. Tears filled Alexander's eyes as he watched from the doorway. Why? For the first time since his wife's death, he didn't feel the crushing silence of grief. He felt peace. Days turned into months. The children became calmer, happier, and their laughter filled every corner of the home. Alexander found himself drawn to Clara not just for how she transformed his children, but for how she reminded him what warmth felt like. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, he found her in the garden, watering the flowers she'd planted with them. "You've done something I couldn't," he said quietly. "You've brought them back to life." Clara looked up, her eyes glistening. "No," she whispered. "They just needed someone to believe they weren't broken." Alexander hesitated. "And you? Who believed in you?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe I needed them as much as they needed me." Everything changed one night when Lily got sick, really sick. She collapsed during dinner, and panic consumed the house. Alexander froze, terrified, memories of his wife's death flooding back. But Clara didn't hesitate. She took charge, called the doctor, and stayed by Lily's side all night. When the little girl finally opened her eyes the next morning, the first word she whispered was, "Clara." Alexander broke down in relief. That moment shattered the last of his walls. Weeks later, as the family sat together in the garden, Clara, teaching the kids how to plant sunflowers, Alexander approached her with a small smile. "You know," he said, "before you came, I thought love was something I'd lost forever." Clara looked up, her heart pounding. "But watching you with them, with us." He paused. "You didn't just heal my children. Ow. You healed me." Tears filled her eyes as the children wrapped their little arms around her legs, giggling. For the first time, the Morgans weren't just a broken family held together by money. They were a family reborn through love, patience, and forgiveness. And as the sun set behind the mansion, painting the sky gold, Clara realized something beautiful sometimes. The most impossible hearts to heal are the ones that just needed someone brave enough to stay. Because love doesn't need perfection, it just needs presence. The greatest miracles happen not through wealth or power, but through kindness, consistency, and the courage to care when everyone else has given up. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content that inspires. We'll see you in the next one.